Hi, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Key Biscayne Neighbors Association's meeting. My name is Betty Sim Conroy. I'm the president of the association, and I'm so happy to see so many engaged citizens, because I think you all understand that without educated, informed citizens, real democracy, we cannot have good government. So I give you all credit for coming tonight. I want to introduce our board. Josie Valdez Herdado, she is our vice president. And Servando Parapar, he is our treasurer. Susanna Braun, where is she?
Me here.
Okay, she's busy setting up more chairs. She's our secretary. I want to recognize any former or current council members who might be here tonight. I know that Myra Lindsay, our former mayor, she will be here. I know because her mom had a operation, so she thought she might be a little bit late. And Ignacio Segurola, who is a former councilman. Oh, Oscar Cedinhas. Okay, stand up. I didn't see. Oh, there, he's in the back. You're already standing up. Oh, Luis de la Cruz. You can stand up too. Well, glad you all came. Thank you for coming. Now, tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce our state representative, Vicki L. Lopez. Representative Lopez was elected in November 2022 to the Florida House of Representatives for District 113. She was appointed and served on the following committees: Select Committee on Health Innovation, she was a vice chairman. Children, Families, and Seniors Subcommittee. Infrastructure and Tourism Appropriations Subcommittee. Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Subcommittee. Pre-K through 12 Appropriations Subcommittee. Transportation and Models Subcommittee. During the 2023 legislative session, Representative Lopez sponsored the Condominium and Cooperative Association Bill, the Live Local Act, and affordable housing. Also, in response to the tragic accident and death of one of our beloved residents, she filed an e-bike and micromobility bill to allow local governments more autonomy to regulate use. Vicki Lopez is a well-respected authority on federal, state, and local government and community relations, and we are delighted that she is here tonight.
Thank you all so much. I'm so pleased to see so many of you out and about. I've been home for 3 weeks now from the legislative session and have been incredibly busy getting back on the ground and seeing my constituents. And so this pleases me very much. And Betty, thank you so much for the opportunity to step into your agenda to give you a quick legislative update. So as Betty said, I have been for the last 2 years very, very focused on condominium law. And I have actually 62 condominium associations on Key Biscayne. Doesn't seem that much, but I have 667 of them in my district. Yeah, that's a lot. I probably have a greater amount of condominium associations than anyone else does in a very constricted and condensed geographical area. So I'm well suited to be the expert of what's known as the statute of Section 718, which governs all condominiums. And I have to tell you that it's been quite the ride. I have had to learn very quickly all the laws, the current laws, and then have really spent a lot of time with many of you listening and allowing your experience as not only condo owners but condo board members to help inform the legislation that I have been passing. So last year, you know that I told you that we had passed Senate Bill 154, which ensured the safety of the building, right, the structural safety of your building, plus the financial reserves, making sure that you had enough money so when the structural components' useful life had expired, you would have the money to replace them. This year, we spent a great deal of time over the summer and in the fall, heard a lot of complaints about how condos were being governed. So this year, I passed House Bill 1021, which is focused solely on governance, transparency, and clarity for condo owners. If you went to the condo town hall meeting that we held here right after session last time, which would have been sometime in June or July, I brought Citizens Insurance with me, and we heard a lot of sentiments around condo boards and what condo owners were experiencing. So I wanted to kind of go over what that all means in practical terms. It's the most comprehensive condo legislation that's ever been passed. How many of you live in a condominium here? Wow, okay. How many of you live in a single family home? Okay, so like kind of half and half. So I'll just address really quickly the condominium, House Bill 1021. So there was a lot of concern, if you will, over conflicts of interest, both of condo board and of property managers, who are known as community association managers, right? So one of the things that the legislation now says is if you're in a condo and you're in a condo board and you're hiring a community association manager, that manager has to, by law now, starting on July 1st, has to tell you before they sign the contract all the conflicts of interest that they have. That means any business that they're involved in, any relationships that they may have, both familial, business-like, because they're going to suggest those people to the condo board, and the condo board needs to know that there is a conflict of interest. The same goes for the board members. If the board members have a conflict of interest, they must disclose it. So that's kind of a new thing to make sure that we have total transparency so that we know who's involved with whom. I'll tell you that I met with a condo association today on Brickell, and their president of the board has a relationship with 8 of the vendors and never disclosed it. Yeah. And actually, that same president, a couple of years back, tried to hire a construction company that was willing to give them kickbacks. Yeah, so that has been happening. I'm not saying that's been happening everywhere, so I don't want anyone to misunderstand, because I think oftentimes good condo board members feel like we might be attacking them, and we're not. I am so grateful if you are a good condo board who's responsible and you really are trying to do the right thing. I applaud you and I will always support you. I am only trying to figure out which ones aren't doing the right thing and making sure that there are, in fact, consequences to that. I will tell you that in the legislation, we have built in criminal and civil penalties, and that's important for you to know. So let's look at election. Election fraud is one of the biggest things that we heard from everyone. I'm actually dealing with probably 5 election fraud cases right now. So how many of you live in buildings where the owners of their units don't live in those units? They might live abroad, or they might live in another state or another city. It's very common, right? It's a common thing in South Florida, but predominantly in Miami-Dade County. So I'll give you an example of how election fraud has taken place. Prior to this legislation, the law was that you could send the ballots either U.S. mail or electronically. And the word "or" is an important distinction because it gave condo boards the option. So I have a condo on Brickell where the majority of the owners do not live in the country. And they scheduled an election for January 28th, and the owners arrived from abroad to vote. And the 2 days before the election, they canceled it. But the owners were already here. So they said, can you give me my ballot now, or can you send it to me electronically, because I have to return to my country, to my family, to my business? And the board said no. No. And so what ended up happening was a vast majority of board members were disenfranchised in that election. Now, given the new legislation beginning on July 1st, because I want you to be clear that if the governor signs it, which I have every indication he will, it will be effective July 1st. So now, if a condo owner requests their ballot electronically, the condo board must give it to them. So there'll be far more participation in the election. And remember that you have to have at least 20% of the condo owners participate in an election for there to be a valid election. So now we'll have a good chance of having everyone's voice heard, and you'll be able to choose your boards. If we find that boards have willfully or intentionally tried to defraud, there will be criminal penalties. The same as if I tried to do any election fraud in my own election. So the very same penalties that apply to me now apply to condo boards. And, you know, there's a lot of concern about who will serve on a condo board. I always say I will serve on a condo board because I mean to do the right thing. I mean to educate myself, and then I want to do the right thing. If I make a mistake, then the mistake can be, you know, corrected. But it's when you willfully and you really are trying to do something against the condo owners, then that will be where the penalties will be. So there's also this notion of how will I know what the rule is? Well, every single condo board will have to take a 4-hour condo education course, and they'll have to provide on their website the certificate that they have completed it. I am telling condo owners, don't let the condo boards be the only ones who know the law. You should know your law. You should know what rights you have. There are plenty of people that are offering these condo courses free of charge. It would behoove you all, if you live in a condo, to get educated. The laws have changed dramatically in the last 2 years. I think in order for you to be sure that you are protected and that your condo board is doing the right thing, that you yourself understand what the law is. So that'll be a real game changer. The other game changer is, and that's not really the case here in the Key, but we have lowered the threshold to have a website. So current law is if you have 150 units or more, you must have a website and the documents must be on the website. We've dropped that to 25 units. So that'll capture a lot more condominiums who haven't given access to their records. After election fraud, the #1 complaint to the Department of Business and Professional Regulation has been, my condo board does not give me access to my records. Now that's silly, because you're supposed to have access to those records. So now, in order to stop that sort of fight between condo owners and the board, all the documents will have to be on the website. You will have the ability to view them, download them, study them, and in addition to that, we have mandated that condo boards meet at least 4 times a year. Why is that? Well, because you might have questions about what you have read or what you have reviewed. And we want the condo boards to have a vehicle in which they can answer your questions. Some condo boards, believe it or not, don't meet at all. Some meet and don't put on the agenda what is going to be discussed or what's going to be voted on. That can no longer be the case. If you're voting on something, it must be on the agenda, it must be provided to the condo owners so that they can review it and ask questions as well. So in addition to the annual meeting when you have an election or when you pass the budget, there will absolutely have to be at least 4 meetings in which they're meeting. And, you know, I'm careful to say that we want it to be so that we begin to bring back the notion that condo boards or condo board members really represent the condo owners. That's really how it's supposed to be. I know in some cases it hasn't been. There's been this adversarial sort of relationship where the condo boards become their own sort of authority against condo owners. That isn't always the case either, but we want it very much to return to where a condo board is truly acting upon the best and highest benefit of those that they represent, which is all of the condo owners in their building. So that's going to be a big change as well. Now, many of you contacted me to tell me that you have contacted over the years the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, and you have made your complaints, thinking that they had authority or that they would in fact, act and help you. But what we discovered last year was that the Department of Business and Professional Regulation had very little authority to help you. Actually, the 3 things that they had authority over, which is your obviously financial records, elections, and access to records, was very much diminished. So this year we sat with the department and we said, look, what's it going to take? Condo owners have a right to come to you and they don't want to get a piece of paper back that says this is not within our jurisdiction. Everything should be in your jurisdiction. So they provided for the legislature a menu of all the things that they haven't been doing that they can do if we gave them money to do it. So we gave them about $7.5 million in recurring dollars, meaning every year they're going to get the same amount. And they're going to hire 62 new people which they need if they're going to actually investigate your complaints. So it's important that you understand that they don't have any more excuses not to do for you what their job is, at least how we believed their job was. So I've told them very clearly that if I hear from a condo owner that has made a complaint and they cannot help them, I'll come back and talk to them about how maybe I'm gonna take their money and their jurisdiction away. We'll give it to somebody else who'll do the job. But they have very much expressed their willingness to be good stewards and good partners of our condo boards and of our office. So that's gonna be a real game changer, trust me, because I can't tell you how many condo owners over the years have had to hire their own attorneys at their own cost. And that's not what we had intended when we began to regulate condominiums. And I think that's gonna be a huge game changer for those, especially those condominiums that had and continue to have issues with their condo boards. I think that's the crux of it. I mean, there's a lot more, and I'm gonna provide for Betty a summary of the bill that she can provide to all of you, because I think it will be important for you to see all the elements of the condominium law. And certainly if you have any questions, I'm always happy to come back, and after you've looked at the law, let me know if you have any questions. One of the things that I really am trying to do is, I know that I missed some things. I mean, the legislation is 154 pages. I know I've missed something. So I'm spending the time that I have home now to listen to the things that I may have missed so that I can include it in next year's condo legislation, right? Because there's always a refinement of condominium situations, procedures, and I'm learning it. I'm meeting with a lot of condo associations. In fact, in 2 weeks, I'll be meeting with your President's Council here in Key Biscayne. So I'm excited to hear how much more I can do to be helpful. One of the things that we tied along with this particular legislation was insurance. And we all know insurance has gone dramatically sky high. And I wanted to do something. Right now, if you live in a single family home, you have been the beneficiary of what's known as the My Florida Safe Homes program. And the way that program works is that you can call the Department of Financial Services. You can request a free inspection of your home. And that entails is you would have an inspector come out and look at your roof and your exterior doors and windows for free. And they'll give you a report that says, look, you could do the following repairs to harden your home so that your insurance premiums go down. And in the last 2 years, we've put $500 million towards that program. Because why? You can take that inspection report and you can apply for a $10,000 grant that the state will just give you. You do the repairs, you certify that the repairs have been done, and you're good to go. And many, many Floridians that live in single family or townhomes have benefited from that particular program. But guess who didn't benefit? Condo owners, right? Condo owners have always been a bit of a stepchild of discussions around residential, and yet they are very much residential. People choose to live in vertical living versus in a single family or townhome. So the speaker and I got together and he said, why don't we try a pilot? Let's see if it works in condominiums, right? Because remember, condominiums have to be completely hardened. The whole building has to be, structurally enforced in order to get the insurance premium. So here's how it's gonna work. I got $30 million for us to try this pilot. And so the first thing a condominium association would do is it would say, if the majority of the board or the majority of the voting interests in the building want to go for the free inspection, you can do so, right? So you just have to prove that you've done either a majority vote of the board or a majority vote of the voting interest in your building. You would get that free inspection. That report would come back to you and it would tell you what you might need to do to harden the roof and the exterior doors and windows. What we've allocated is $175,000 per building as a grant from the state to the condominium buildings. So that is a huge help. The question will be, because here's what in order to get the legislation passed, the next thing that I don't think is going to work, but we're going to have to prove that it doesn't work, is you need a unanimous vote of the building. Everybody has to agree to be assessed something, because the grant is $175,000, but you also have to put in $175 or more. So because of that, the leadership in the House said, you gotta get everybody to agree to that. Now, those of us that live in a condominium, as I do, know that I can barely get anybody to come to a meeting, much less agree that today might be Tuesday. And so I think it's gonna be difficult to get a unanimous vote. But what I want to do is prove, one, that there were enough condominiums who wanted to have the inspection. Two, that it ended up with reports that you wanted to proceed with the grant process. But three, that you may or may not have been able to get the unanimous votes in your building. And if I find that everyone's trying to apply for the grants and they can't get a unanimous vote, I'm gonna have to go back to the legislature next year and say, that doesn't work either. Maybe we make it 80%, maybe we make it the majority of the interest. But in some fashion, it may not work to do a unanimous vote. So I would like that $30 million to be spent here in South Florida, and in particular, my district, since I have 667. So I am encouraging any condominium building to, at least after July 1st, when the law goes into effect, to try your desperate self to get at least the inspection. Let's find out what the inspection says. Let's see if you can apply for a grant, because that way I can say that money that I fought so hard for is actually being used in my district, because other representatives can also benefit from this program across the state. And so, because Miami-Dade has the most condominiums in the entire state, and because I believe that I may have the most in a tight geographical area, I'd like to see the money spent here. So I'm encouraging anyone on the Key that is a condo board member to take that to your boards and to say, look, that might be a good idea for us to at least get started with the first phase of it, which is the inspection. So that was a very important piece of legislation, because it will extend the benefit to condominiums, and so condominium owners can benefit from maybe reducing their insurance premiums in that fashion. There have been a lot of buildings that have done. There was actually a building today, this morning in Brickell Key, that has actually completely redone the roof, and the exterior doors and windows are now impact, and they are seeing an insurance reduction as well. So we know that it works. That's what the intent of the project is. Let's hope that you can move forward with that. And then I wanted to talk a little bit, if I may, just because I only have 2 municipalities in my district. I have the very biggest bulk of the city of Miami, and of course I have all of the Key. And I love that the village is so organized when it comes to actually proposing appropriations requests for me. They are very thoughtful about it. And so I want to tell you a little bit about the requests that they made and what we were able to bring home. I was able to get $100,000 for the special needs programming. For me, I'm a champion of people with special needs. I believe everyone should live with dignity, and I love that the island has a special needs program, and I wanted to be helpful. And I made the case that I don't want my constituents on the island to have to leave the island for services. So this is a good way for our special needs community to have some funding for their own programming here. There was also, you may have noticed, at the Key Biscayne K-8 community school, that we always have some flooding around there. There's always seeming to be flooding because we've needed some stormwater systems. So we got $500,000 to help the village actually upgrade their stormwater system and improve the roadways around the school, which I think is important, especially since so many children go to the school. So we're excited about that. We also, on the Crandon Boulevard, we had a multimodal traffic flow and safety improvements project. We were able to get $212,500 to reinforce improving the intersections, the traffic signalization and crosswalks to make it safer for pedestrians. So I was excited about that, because usually the state doesn't like to give money for what they call traffic calming or pedestrian stuff, but I always argue this is a very unique place, and it really does deserve to have funding to make sure that, because it's walkable, because people are on golf carts, because people are on bikes, that we should have a lot of pedestrian safety in the village. We got $137,500 for a traffic data analysis that's going to be used. They're going to install traffic sensors and provide vital data to the Key on traffic patterns, which I think is important. And remember that what I tell the state always is guess what? The state park is at the end of the island. So that means people that don't live on the island are consistently coming onto the island. And so traffic at times can be heavier because I have people coming to the state park. So we've had a lot of talks about it, and so they've agreed to allow the village to do a traffic study, which I think will be very useful. We can figure out when is the traffic the worst, is it really traffic? Listen, I've experienced now 2 times in the last 7 days, the traffic to Key Biscayne has been wild. I know that if anyone was stuck the way I was stuck, I was actually coming from a town hall meeting in Aventura, and when I came down I-95, I noted that, the exit to the Rickenbacker was backed up to downtown. I said, what's going on there? And I said, that must be an accident or something. It's never like this. So I kept passing thinking that maybe it would slow down, and it didn't. So I said, well, I'll go US 1 and I'll turn around on 17. But what I saw on US 1 was also a traffic jam. And I said, no, okay, I'm not gonna do that. And I still couldn't figure out what was going on. So I made a left on a right on 16th, and I went up Coral Way. But every time I saw the arteries going to the Key, it was like a stop, everything was stopped, everything. And I thought, wow, this accident must be huge. So I came up Brickell, and about 100 feet from my building, I was stuck in traffic, and eventually it moved a little bit, and I was able to get in. And I got on my balcony, and I said, I wonder what I can see from here. Oh my God, all I saw was a traffic jam on the causeway. There was no movement. I didn't know when anyone would move. And that's when I learned, when I did a little research, that there was some sort of crazy music festival that was creating trauma, not only for you all. I heard that it took you 2 hours I kept saying, God forbid anyone left the island for dinner, because they were not going to return anytime soon. And that created a big kind of question mark in my mind about how we handle these things, right? Because it also created a nightmare for those of us on Brickell that were trying to get home. Because remember, all roads, kind of convene there at the entrance. So I'm hopeful that this study that we have funded is going to tell us a couple of things that we need to know in order to better, I think, to adequately perform traffic studies. I think we need to know what is causing the traffic. And listen, everyone knows traffic is horrible in Miami. It's just horrible. And we created another problem by allowing the music festival, and you all probably didn't see, but we saw the blue laser lights at 3 a.m. in our condos. So there was more than just traffic issues with that particular situation. It was bad. And lastly, we got $250,000 for emergency management planning, training, and exercise. And I think it's important, again, I always say, we're not the keys, but we are the key. And that's different for me, because even though we're not a critical state of concern for the state, which is what all the keys are, starting on the upper keys, we only have one way in and out of this island if there were an emergency. And I think we need to have some planning. We need to understand how we're going to all get off of here if there is an emergency, right? So I'm grateful to have gotten the $250,000 to help do that study. So those are the appropriations. Very few people came home with that kind of money for one municipality. And I am super grateful that the leadership understood my advocacy on behalf of my barrier island and all the things that are different about this island versus the mainland. So that is very much what I did, other than the Live Local. So I want you to know the Live Local has never really impacted you, and I'm grateful for that. You do not have a lot of property. You do not have people coming in here to build what we call the missing middle affordable housing. And that is for teachers, nurses, first responders, police officers, and anybody else who makes between 80 and 120% average medium income. But it has been important on Miami's side. So you're probably not watching that legislation as much, because gratefully this is a pretty pristine island, and you have pretty good laws about neutral growth. So that's the good news, but I did a lot of work, at least for the mainland, on providing more affordable housing. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions, but I will be listening. I really want to understand what your issues are, what your interests are, so that I can do whatever I can do as your state legislator. And let me just tell you this as well. I tell everyone, if I can't fix it at the state, but it's a county problem, I intercede for you. I call, I tell them, look, this is important on Key Biscayne, and, you know, I know that we were gonna talk a little bit about bicycles, e-bicycles, I know.
Yes,
So,
yes, please.
I
I'd
want,
like to do
yes, I would like to tell you, I am so disappointed. So you may have remembered that after I got elected, the first piece of legislation I filed was to try to do something with the, what we call micromobility devices on the island. It was also a problem on the mainland. And I myself almost got hit by a scooter going on the sidewalk, going very, very fast, and I would always see it because I walk Brickell a lot. I would see the potential dangers. And so I got a lot of pushback from the state, and I couldn't understand it. I said, you know, the laws that you have passed were passed several years ago, but they were passed for those that are rentals. We have to address now those that are being used, personal use. And I kept telling everyone, you know, I had to withdraw my legislation that first year because they just refused to move anything. They were convinced that there was nothing that I could do, and I disagreed with them wholeheartedly. But I do remember saying to them, listen to me, if a death occurs, this will be on your watch. And let me tell you something, you know what I thought? I thought a poor child would be. I remember coming to the first meeting that the village had, and I thought to myself, dear God, I hope it's not a child that dies, because that's such an incredible tragedy. But the worst tragedy happened on February 14th when our beloved Megan Andrews was out for just a regular bicycle ride, right? It was Valentine's Day. She thought, I'll take a ride. I'm going out to dinner with my husband. She never in her wildest dreams thought that she would not return home or that she would die on the side of the street because she'd been hit by an e-bicycle. And honestly, I remember where I was. Your mayor called me. When he called me 3 times at 8 o'clock at night, I said, oh God, something is terribly wrong on the island. And I returned his call, and he said, I need you to know that there's been a death. And I was so devastated because I was angry. I said, my God, just what I said was going to happen happened. And so I wasn't very nice to the committee chairwoman or the committee staff that had pushed back. And this happened on a Wednesday. I came home on a Friday, and I called the committee chairwoman and I said to her, Megan's blood is on your hands. She was not happy with me. She was actually pretty angry. She called me and she said, you know what? You don't need to talk to me like that. And I said, listen, I need to talk to anybody who won't listen to what we need to happen on the island. And not just the island, anywhere else. And earlier you may have remembered that they told me, when they told me to withdraw my legislation, they told me that there were 15 municipalities that had filed ordinances. And why didn't we do that? And at first I wondered, why didn't we do that? Except to say that, you know what we have now researched all the ordinances. And we called all the city and county attorneys that were part of those ordinances around the state. And they told us, no, we just did for rentals, right? So they'd done what we had given everyone jurisdiction to do approximately 5 years ago. We said, you can regulate the rentals. Because remember, rental companies were coming, and the legislation said we give local governments the ability to regulate speed, a distance, whatever, where they're going to be. So that's what happened. Nobody regulated age restrictions for personal use micromobility devices. And remember that micromobility device is not defined in statute by device. It's defined as a rental. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. Because there are all kinds of different kinds of micromobility devices. You're just accustomed to seeing e-bikes and maybe some scooters. There's quite a few more that fall under the jurisdiction or definition of micromobility devices. And so anyway, they knew I was angry. And so now remember, it's February 14th. We're moving into the third week of February, and that means we only have maybe 3 weeks left in session. I don't have any bill slots. I don't have any way to do something quick. And I think the chairwoman felt so badly about this tragedy that she was carrying a transportation bill, and she said to me, Vicki, I'll allow you to amend my bill with your language. So I quickly worked with committee staff, and we got the language, and we put it on there, and it passed. I'll not forget that day. It passed in committee, and I asked is the Senate gonna take our bill? Because if you don't know how it works, our bill was going to the floor first. We passed it out of the floor, and we sent it to the Senate in what's known as messages. Okay, so that's how it works. In other words, anything that we're doing in the Florida House, and we've passed a bill at the end, we send it to the Senate in messages. They're doing the same thing. They're passing bills and sending it to us in messages. So you expect the Senate to pick up your bill, right? That's the way it works. So, geez, I didn't see them picking it up. I go to her, I said, listen to me. Oh no, someone alerted me. Someone said, Vicki, do you know the transportation bill is dead? I go, what? What do you mean dead? She had told me they were gonna pick it up. Everybody knew they were gonna pick it up. But politics gets played in the last 2 days, 3 days of session. And I went up to her and I said, listen to me, what's happening with the transportation bill? And she said, it's dead. And I said, oh my God. It's kind of hard because it's a range of emotions. You get really excited that you were able to put it in the bill. You think it's going to pass. You think you can come home and tell the village you can regulate age restrictions. And then for some political reasons, probably nothing to do with our bill, our language, or that bill, the Senate decided to let the bill die in messages. So they never picked it up. So now my role is, remember, now every 2 years, there's a change in leadership, right? So the Speaker of the House, who's currently Speaker Renner, in November will no longer be Speaker. The new Speaker will be Danny Perez, who is from Miami-Dade. And then the new Senate President is going to be Ben Albritton from sort of in the central, sort of close to Tampa area, right? So now we don't know what committees, they get to do their own committees, they get to appoint their own committee chairman, so I have to wait. But what I am gonna do is the minute those committees are announced, the minute I know who the committee staff director is, the minute I know who the chairman is, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna work with them, and I'm gonna work with our speaker, and I'm gonna say, listen, not only did Megan Andrews die, but 2 weeks after that, a young student was killed right around the university. And then there was another death in Broward County just recently. And I'm just gonna say, look, I don't care what we have to do, we have to do something. Because micromobility devices should be defined as what they are, and then there should be different classes of it. You see the big impediment in statute is that if the electric bike can ever be pedaled without the motor on, it's considered a bike. Yes, and I say, well then let's have a different class. Let's have real bikes that have no motors, and then let's have a separate class that says bikes with motors, right? And then let's regulate those differently than we regulate just the regular bicycle that most of us ride anyway, right? So at some juncture, I'm now taking this on as I want to call it Megan Andrews legislation, to be honest with you. I want to pass it and I want it to be called Megan Andrews. We do it all the time. Listen, it's not unusual to name a piece of legislation by a victim that has been victimized by whatever it is the legislation addresses. So that is I pray, and listen, I know that I'm a fighter, if you don't already know me. And, and I'm just not going to rest, and I will bring all forces down on that legislature. I will go to the press. I will do whatever it takes. Someone's going to listen to me, and I'm going to write a piece of legislation that addresses this problem. And I promise you, with your help, because I'm going to need help, we're going to get it across the finish line this year, and we are going to honor Megan. Of a terrible tragedy should come something incredibly good, and this will be her legacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn the meeting now over to our moderator, Ignacio Cigarola.
Well, first I'd like to say thank you very much, Representative Lopez. You covered pretty much, I think, every topic that applies to Key Biscayne, especially the last one. And I personally learned a lot of the inner workings, everything that's been going on over the last couple of months. I myself live in a condo, so I understood that part. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Your talk was invaluable.
Thank you so much.
And now for the second topic of the evening. We had invited 2 people here to speak on the e-bikes for and against the ban, which is the hot topic on the island right now. We have Mark Freed here, who honestly does not need any introduction. And we had invited a second person who is not here. The second person was going to speak against the ban. Since they're not here, we've discussed basically opening it up to anyone in the audience who is against the ban or some sort of regulation. I believe we would learn. The only thing that I ask is please, respectful discussion. In the end, all that we're trying to do here is to find the best solution for Key Biscayne and potentially the state of Florida. So without further ado, I invite Mark Freed up here to speak, attorney, lifelong Key Biscayne resident. I'll hand it over to him.
Thank you, Ignacio.
My pleasure.
Pleasure to see you all. My name's Mark Freed. Can you hear me without the mic? Okay. Just to take some of the heat out of this room, who lived on the Key when this was hanging in the bank? Let's see, not many. Who knew who the artist is? Where he lived, Cypress Drive. I went to school with Hank Banks' daughter. Was sent to the principal's office in second grade when I hit her in the stomach at free play. So I've been here a little while. Personally, I am for the ban. Why are we here? We're going to discuss the different classes of e-bikes, some of the Florida statutes that govern e-bikes, and where Key Biscayne, the village, does have the power to regulate, the history of what's happened on the island with the advent of e-bikes, and then options for the citizens of Key Biscayne. I'm looking at this not what I prefer, what I want, what I like. I'll let you know later what I like, but it's not what I think is proper. We have to do this democratically. So we're here discussing this because we've seen e-bikes affect the quality of life on Key Biscayne. Key Biscayne is, you look at their websites, you look, island paradise. Well, that paradise kind of disappeared when you're walking in the morning on the sidewalk and you're happy you didn't take a step 2 inches to your right and get clipped. We have to look forward, but in order to chart a course, but in order to look forward and chart that course, you have to know where you are, and that's where you've been, what our plot line was in the past. I don't know if I want to debate. I could cover, as a lawyer, I could speak for the ban, and I could speak against the ban. You might hear both here. So e-bikes do have 3 classes. There's one class, you have to pedal the bike in order to get the electric assistance, and it'll help assist the bike up to 20 miles per hour. There's a class 2 e-bike, which is totally electric. It has a throttle, and it supposedly has a limit to 20 miles an hour. I question that, having seen bikes go by at 30 miles an hour without people pedaling. And then the class 3 e-bike is a pedal-assisted e-bike that can go up to 28 miles per hour. I also looked at what the popular bike out here, the Super 73 that all these kids are looking at. They make those in every class, so they can go 28 miles per hour. I talked to some kids once, and they said you could modify it where it'll go faster. The Super 73 is $36.95 up to $39.95. That's $3,995. Really? It's a lot of money for these kids to be zipping around on. So the Florida statutes state that the e-bikes have the same rights and responsibilities as operators of bicycles. The section does not prevent local government from adopting and governing operation of e-bikes. Section 316-2065 says the bike rider has the same rights and duties applicable to the driver of other vehicles. So an e-bike is a bicycle under the law, but the rider of the e-bike is subject to all rules of the road as we are in a car. Aside, as I looked at this, an e-bike or any bicycle should not be used to carry more persons that they are designed for. So if you look at the scooters and how many kids are on there, there is a glaring break of the law. And then 316.008, powers of local authorities. And it says it doesn't prevent regulating the operation of bikes in certain areas in a municipality. And the municipality may enact an ordinance to control or regulate the operation of e-bikes, motorized scooters, etc., etc. We've witnessed on Key Biscayne over the last 2 years is just, for a 12-year-old, what a blast. I'm on my e-bike and I'm going all over the place. It's what I did on a Vespa when I was 15. And the local cop would pull me over. How is he at every stop sign that I run? Officer Brownlee was there. So I look at the history of the Key. The island was out of control. There was discriminatory, or discretionary, or total lack of enforcement. And this goes to policy. The policy of Key Biscayne is set across the street by the village council. The policy is implemented from the village council down through its manager. The manager wants it implemented through his chiefs, chief of police, chief of fire, whatever they're going to implement. And this policy, whatever the council believed they had set, was not the policy being implemented by the employees of the village. After Megan died, I met with a couple of counselors and I asked councilmen. I asked one, "What happened? What do you mean? What happened? Why didn't you guys do something?" I don't know. I wrote a letter a year before the accident and I republished it, but it was basically, it said what happened. And Ed said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to let that, the council member said, shoot, I blew it, sorry Ed. But, oh, he's here. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I didn't hear you correctly. But it was that getting a citation can affect when you could get your driver's license. And I didn't say anything at the time. I wasn't quick enough to think of it, but I thought this policy of let's not hurt the 15-year-old or 14-year-old to get his license was a trade-off on, okay, we're going to protect this kid from something with the potential of losing a life. I think that is a bad trade-off. I also
Not exactly right. What we said was that we didn't want it to go to the county on the record, but we do it locally. That's what
Okay, but the other is I looked at the law, and if someone has a moving violation within 12 months of when they apply for a learner's permit, they have to wait the year. So if someone gets at 12 years old, it doesn't affect when they can get their license. It's only when they're 14 waiting on 15. But in any event, that still was policy. There was a Crandon excuse. We don't control Crandon Boulevard. I go, really? We have 1.4 miles or 1.25 mile of Crandon Boulevard. We have 15 miles or so of interior Key Biscayne roadway. That's where the majority of us are. That's where the majority of us have been nicked and closely called and hit by these e-bikes. And so there was a lack of control. So now we've gone ahead and we have a total ban, which we're allowed to do for 30 or 60 days under the law. It can be redone. I look at it, I love it out here. On Saturday, after February 14th, or when this ban went into effect on Friday, I was out walking the dog early in the morning with Gail, and I thought, it's eerie out here. This is like COVID, but the people aren't getting away from you. Whoa! COVID. It was what a delight. And then after a few days, you're walking around and your defenses are a little less active, and you're going, this is really pleasant. This is the island paradise again. How nice. So is the ban really good for us and quality of life? Heck yeah. Yes, it is. But is it an overcorrection? Did the door slam too much? In which we look at this and think, okay, we've got 3 classes. I think Ed mentioned, I'm going to quote you again, sir, I respect you so much, that you said on the dais we could govern class 2 and class 3 bicycles. Ban them. So we have the class 1, which is pedal assist, only, you get electric only with pedal assist up to 20 miles an hour. Maximum. So if you go with that and let it known, okay, we're gonna try this out, and we're going to enforce. That's the other thing. You can have all the policy and laws you want, but if there's no enforcement, throw it away. It's garbage.
Not riding the bikes on the sidewalks, only the class one in the streets.
Okay, so with this, and then you look at it, if, with enforcement, and I've talked to chiefs of police here, or a chief in the past, and it was like, we don't want to enforce that because of all the people and husbands who'll be in my office complaining. I go, that's how we set policy. This is how we said, come on, strap it on and let's go. Let's if we have the law, enforce it uniformly, equally, without the ability, some discretion, but make it uncomfortable for the kids who are breaking the law, endangering themselves and endangering others. Make it uncomfortable for the parents who would, if they're paying $4,000 or more for an e-bike, and as one chief said about texting on the bike, they even buy them iPhone holders to put on their handlebars, so they can drive while texting. So these are the things that we have to look at, and if this doesn't work, and people in the majority of Key Biscayne residents feel this isn't what we want for our quality of life, then take the next step and, hey, we gave you we tried, boom. If law comes in that we can regulate further, or as you say, there's no age limit on these little scooters, on these e-bikes. And an e-bike, this is something where technology has gone much quicker. It always does. It's much quicker than legislation. Technology moves at the speed of profit. Legislation moves at, you can define what that moves at. So the e-bikes have way overtaken what the definition of bicycle is. An e-bike is a bike. No, an e-bike is a motorcycle. It's not an internal combustion engine. If you get it's something with an internal combustion engine, you can't do any of this fun stuff. You're under the law. So that's something that should be caught up to. So with respect to for the ban, there are a lot of good reasons and rationale, and check that box for total ban, and then for those in favor of having an e-bike of some sort, there's a way to do that. That's it.
Quick question. Before we take questions, well, I'll be happy to have question and answer period right after. Is there anyone here that volunteers to speak on an opposing view? You're among friends, so don't be afraid. Would you? That's no.
I didn't speak. I spoke as a resident, not a lawyer.
By the way, this is, as you can see, this is a meeting of neighbors to exchange ideas. This is not, I wouldn't even call this a debate. This is just a discussion. If you are willing to, I'd invite you to come up here and speak your piece. Go ahead, and we're all here just respectfully trading ideas.
So I guess I have a different view, but not that different, let's be honest. Like I honestly, I've been on the Key for a very long time. So I have a different view, but not that different, right? So there's some similarities to what this gentleman was saying, but there's some opposing views as well. I mean, I lived on the Key almost all my life, on and off the Key. I lived here when I was young. We moved away for school, came back when I had kids. I have a younger kid and I have an older kid, I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. Hello?
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I agree. It was a disaster and this tragedy happened. Kids were riding too fast. The sidewalks are not wide enough for everybody to be on the sidewalk and share the sidewalk. So there's things that need to happen. I believe in the use of e-bikes, but we need to regulate it and restrict it. That's why I think what you're trying to do is very important. I do believe in age limits, okay? And I do think 12 is young, and I have a 12-year-old, so I'm not here advocating for my kid, right? I do think maybe 16, 17 is old because they're already driving cars. And honestly, I remember me driving at 16 years old, and trust me, I wish I would have learned some of the things before I was 16, because I was pretty crazy driver. I believe there has to be education. You know, we need to educate. I got together with a group of parents. You know, we're very involved parents. We're very involved with our kids. Our kids are very active. Some kids are older than any age limit. Some are adults, you know, and they shouldn't be restricted from driving them. Some are younger than this age limit, and we're like, I wouldn't give it to my kid, right? So you need education. And education is not a 1 hour class. Education is, if you can call it, it's a series of classes, right? Go through a program, educate them, learn street signs. Like if you were studying for your restricted license, you just do it, you know, at certain hours that you have to accumulate. You finish this, you get a registration sticker, you put it on your e-bike. You can have your picture. So when you get pulled over by a cop and you want to say, oh, I don't have an ID, I don't have anything, there's a number there. Like you do for the golf carts, but now it has a picture of the kid that's supposed to be driving that e-bike. Or the child or the whatever. Anybody, I guess, with a driver's license wouldn't apply to this because they already have a driver's license. Outside of that, there's adults that use these. Like I know people that go with their e-bikes to work to Brickell or their scooters. Why are we restricting them? So, you know, education, age-based limitations, safety for everyone, you know, let's be safe. And I agree, you know, the sidewalks, that's an issue. My mom got run over, but it wasn't by an e-bike. It was by a 40-something-year-old male on a regular bicycle. She got run over by the bicycle. Okay, and you know what the guy said? The guy got, like, my dad said something, and the guy got off the bike, and he's like, what, you want to do something about it? And it was a Key Biscayne resident, guys. So it's not only kids being wild and aggressive towards people. It's all ages. Like, it applies to everybody. You know, unfortunately, this was a terrible accident. I think it's brought out a lot of, like, ugliness in people on both sides. I've heard about kids being insulted, being called horrible things, and I emailed this to the council. I emailed the examples, the conversations, the situations. Other people did this as well. And on the other side, there's kids being very rude to adults as well. But we're the adults. We got to learn. Like, if we want respect, we got to give respect. You know, I'm concerned. My son rides his bicycle. And I always tell him, you know what? Keep your phone in handy. If somebody says or does anything, take a picture, record it. I'll probably find out who it is. I shouldn't be living like that. I never lived like that. When I was young, people were complaining about me using my rollerblades. You know, but at least no one was insulting me or calling me really horrible names. And I really, you know, we need to find a solution that works for everybody. And technology, it's not going to regress. It's not going to go backwards. It's just going to go forward. I mean, when I was growing up, it was rollerblades. Before that, it was probably bicycles. You know, today it's e-bikes, and something else is going to come along. So we need, you know, my view is that we need to find a way that benefits us as a society. We're 15,000 residents, and now, like, most of us living here full time. When I was growing up, half of the island was like snowbirds or South Americans that had their properties here. So as we have some things that we agree with, but, you know, some others that we differ. For me, a complete ban is not the solution. Class 1, Class 2 is another thing where I have a different opinion. I don't think the issue lies with how the bicycle or the e-bicycle or the micromobility is started. I think the issue lies on the speed. Class 1 and Class 2 both go up to 20 miles an hour. And you're not going to hurt somebody when you're just starting off. Where you come into hurting, or the probability of getting hurt or hurting somebody, is when you're at full speed. So I think there's some things that we need to look at and see it as an entire community. Like, I can see why some people are scared to walk the sidewalks and have these kids or older people driving it. I can see the other side as well. And my goal would be to find a common solution, like a solution that applies to everybody. So that's what I have to say.
Hi, for you guys that don't know me, my name is Frank Andrews, and Megan was my wife. And I have with me my daughter Alexandra, that wrote a beautiful article in the Island in the News last week. And that's the point that I want to pick up, because we're talking about the mechanical side of the bikes and everything else. Now, Megan was born here, and she rode her bike all her life in here. And she was killed, unfortunately, by a little kid, 12 years old, driving this thing here. And that's the focus in here. Alexander's article that came out in the Island News states clearly that a 12-year-old, no matter how much you educate them and how many lessons you give them, they do not have the mental capabilities and the understanding to do the right thing. And to the end of my, will be 40 years old, 40 years married, a beautiful wife and a great mother and the love of my life. Alexander, would you like to say something else?
Okay, my name is Alexandra Andrews. Megan was my mother. I grew up on Key Biscayne. I followed my mom's footsteps and also am an educator. So the title of my article is This is About Much More Than Just E-Bikes. This commentary is about setting children and young adults up for success. As an educator for 10 plus years, I have reflected on a fair amount about brain development. As the proud daughter of Megan Andrews, I learned there is a science to brain development. The prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe of the brain, which houses the area responsible for the executive functions, does not mature until much later on in life. Self-monitoring, focusing, attention span, mental workload, impulse control, and self-control are just a few of the many important executive functions. All of the skills mentioned are necessary to safely operate a motorized vehicle. The area of the brain that houses these skills does not finish developing until adulthood around age 25. I implore all parents and leaders to continue to educate themselves on what seems to be, and has been, the obvious that children should not operate e-bikes. This is not a new conversation or new knowledge. There's plenty of credible information available. A study published by the National Institute of Health entitled Electric Bicycles Are an Increasingly Common Pediatric Health Problem found that the age group most, and I'm quoting this right now, the age group most commonly affected by e-bike injury, 44.3%, was 10 to 13 years old. Our children simply do not have the skills necessary to safely operate motorized vehicles due to their immature brains. I am aware of those parents who state that because they can regulate the speed of their child's e-bikes via their phone or have strict guidelines with their children, then it should be fine to allow children to use e-bikes. Although strict boundaries might minimally reduce injuries or death, it will not stop them from happening due to the mere fact that a parent cannot force the immature brain of a child to perform in ways it physically cannot. Almost done. Would these parents feel the same way with their boundaries if instead of an e-bike it was a weapon? Probably not. Giving a child an e-bike is in many ways like giving a child a weapon. A weapon, when not properly handled, can harm or kill the user or others. Same with an e-bike, clearly. Simply put, injury or death will occur at some point if children are allowed to operate e-bikes. Note, we are located on a small island that feels overpopulated with thousands of children, many affluent families who can easily afford to buy their children e-bikes, and a high pedestrian and cyclist rate. Children are vulnerable and immature by their very nature. It is and has been wholly irresponsible for parents and leaders to expect children to safely operate e-bikes. In giving a child an e-bike, you are and have been setting them up to fail. Always meet children where they are, as it is unfair and impossible for it to be the other way around. When I was a child growing up on Key Biscayne, we were in a constant state of bliss without e-bikes. Please assist Key Biscayne in being a peaceful paradise where children are supported to be safe.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak, or should we please come up?
My name is Rodrigo Perez Alonso. I'm originally from Mexico, and I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for listening to us, and for everyone being here for this very important issue. First of all, let me say I'm very sad for your loss, sir, and I've seen you in the gym, and you're a wonderful, wonderful person, and I understand your wife was a wonderful person also. So I'm very sorry for your loss. I moved here 3-4 years ago with my wife and kids, and I've known this community for a long time. My parents have been coming and going from Mexico and Nicaragua to Key Biscayne for a long time, for more than 40 years, you know. So I understand that this is an island paradise, but let me just tell you a few stories. No? This ban has obviously impacted not only on a personal level, but also on a community level. The e-bikes regulation is, in my view, it's very extreme, and I'm going to tell you why. So let me just tell you a story. No? As the regulation stands right now, it says that all electric vehicles are banned. No? That means that my 81-year-old mother, she has mobility issues. she can't use her mobility scooter, whatever, on the premises or the village, whatever. No, she can't use that. No, so as per the language of the regulation, no, of the ban. Second thing is, I'm 45 years old. I have a license. I know I had to pass an exam. I had to do all these things, to have a driver's license. I have a scooter, an electric scooter, and it's actually very dangerous. Let me tell you, it goes like 45 miles per hour. So I usually wear a helmet. I wear everything, and I try to be very slow when I drive around it in Key Biscayne when it was permitted, of course. So today I had to take the bus. I'm not complaining. I had to take the bus. My car wasn't working, whatever. And my wife was telling me you should take the e-bike, your e-scooter to Brickell. And of course I couldn't do it because I live in Key Colony. It's not permitted to use your e-bike or e-mobility, whatever scooter. Second thing is, I don't want to get a ticket. No? So, in other words, I understand where this regulation is coming from. And again, I understand the feelings that this issue has come up with this community. But let's also think about the important part, which is the regulatory part or the legislative part. I think this language, as it stands, prohibits me, my mother, and me even using a Tesla. I'm not kidding. The language, as it stands right now, prohibits any electric vehicle from driving the streets of Key Biscayne. So my Tesla, I can't drive my Tesla. Well, in theory, no?
Golf cart.
A golf cart, exactly. So I think the solution here is let's find a happy medium, of course. Let's find somewhere that we can all agree on. I think we all agree that it was a complete mess before. And my kids have e-bikes. And to be honest, every time they went out to the school, my wife was always like checking her phone, checking where they were going. So of course we were worried, no? Because that thing goes really fast, no? So it's been a very positive change for the community, not seeing e-bikes around. I agree completely. But I do think that we have to regulate very smart. The issue or the word here is smart regulation. I used to be in Mexico a specialist in regulation. That's why I had the chance to speak here. I'm not a lawyer here, I have to say that, but I'm a lawyer back in Mexico. So I do think that smart regulation is a key here. And of course, opening up this debate to public comments. I don't know if that's something in the law here. You can open up regulation to public comments for 30 days, let's say, 30 days. And you can listen to people like me complain about, I want to drive my electric cart around, and this legislation doesn't permit it. So when you listen to that, obviously you create better legislation or better regulation. So that's basically it. And again, I'm very sorry for the community's loss for Megan, and I understand she was a beautiful human being, and we're all for regulation. I'm personally for creating a safer community, but let's do it smart. No? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
The question here has been about e-bikes because that was the micromobility device that created the tragedy, right? But I'm interested in all micromobility devices. They're all, in my opinion, listen, we've told everyone, get out of your cars, get out of your cars, the traffic's terrible. So what's happened is we've created a new way of transportation, which is called micromobility devices. And I want you to know you could watch any committee meeting. I'm on transportation and modals. Anytime the Department of Transportation sent a representative to speak before the committee, I was always saying, what about micromobility devices? When are you going to do something about them? So you're right. It seems as the Department of Transportation only looks at roads. That's their only focus. And in the back of their annual plan last year, they had what was called emerging issues. And there was micromobility devices. I want you to know how many times I called them on that. And I said, it's not emerging. It's very present. It's really here, and we're encouraging people to use different forms of transportation, but we have to now look at what do we have to do to regulate them. So you're absolutely correct. I know the discussion here has been about e-bikes. I'm not just focused on e-bikes. I'm focused on all micromobility devices.
I think the problem we have is infrastructure. this vehicle cannot go in sidewalks, but also are very risky if they go in the street. So there has to be an infrastructure solution before you have a regulation, because I think that's the only way you can match everybody and allow them to do micromobility. If you check what is happening in Europe, they are basically banning micromobility in Europe, in all the big cities in Europe, because of the problem of infrastructure. So I think that's a key element that
I agree with you, but also there's the problem of infrastructure for any bicycle. So today, I was on Brickell and bikes were whizzing by me between cars and then jumping up in front of the cars, slowing everybody down. It is incredibly dangerous because bikes on the road, there's this notion that I own the road if I'm a bike. A lot of them don't stay to the, to the edge. And I know that the law is I have to be 3 feet from them when I'm traveling around them if they're on the edge. I'm talking about they're in the middle of the road now. And they don't even stop at stoplights. Today I was stopped at a stoplight, these characters went right through them and I said, my God, what is going on here? So the infrastructure is not just for micromobility devices. We have no infrastructure for bicycles, because if you didn't build a bike lane, then there's no infrastructure for any device.
So the point is, it's not about regulation only, it's about infrastructure.
Yeah, but I don't know what to do with that because I can't put bike lanes on all the roads because we didn't think about that. So I can't widen Biscayne, for instance. I can't even widen Crandon to put more bike lanes. I can't widen certain streets so that we have the proper infrastructure.
The
So-
underline is one option that is now available for micromobility, so something like that must be done in order to allow.
Well, I wonder what Rodrigo would have done. Where is he, Rodrigo? Rodrigo lives on Key Biscayne. I don't know what his scooter looks like. But are you talking about an e-bike or a scooter?
It's an electric, it's an adult scooter.
The scooter like that, with like this where you, okay, so I wonder what would have happened if you carried yours to the boundary of Key Biscayne. Remember, the village of Key Biscayne is not the whole, thing. It starts and stops at a certain place.
Circle.
So I can tell you this, it's really funny. In Brickell, they have them all over everybody in my building seems to have one. They fold, they carry them out till they get to the sidewalk and then they go like crazy. You could have probably done so because, you're on Crandon, could have walked with it to the village boundary and then gotten on it and gone across to Brickell. Because it's only banned in Key Biscayne. And I don't know, someone asked the question, I think, Mark, you did, is it banned on Crandon? It's not banned on Crandon because Crandon is a county road. So the village doesn't have jurisdiction to ban anything on that road. Yet. But you could have gone out from Key Colony, right on the sidewalk, or the street, because that's Crandon, and you could have gone out, because I think there's confusion. Crandon is a county road, and until the village enters into an MOU with the county, it cannot extend the ban to Crandon. So just know that.
Just want to add to the danger issues with the e-bikes and scooters.
Yeah.
Versus electric vehicles. Electric vehicles have the strict government oversight versus electric bikes and scooters. Not sure there's a strict government oversight with the batteries. So those batteries are what takes one bad battery for it to cause a major fire in a condominium.
In the parking garage, for sure.
So that's another issue.
Yeah.
And not just that, for a single family residence as well. One bad battery will cause a major fire.
Luisa?
So I don't really have any pro or against, but I do think for the e-bikes, I'd like for you to consider, because I'm reading up on why this wasn't passing, and the fact that 2 years ago, which was a shock to me, the Florida legislature actually said they didn't have to wear helmets, which sounded insane, and then removed the age restriction 2 years ago. So I'd like to see if you could put an age restriction back, and I don't think 12-year-olds should be on it, but I have to speak for the kids from Mast Academy, and a lot of those kids do take the bikes. They use that to get to and from school. I've even said that maybe when they come within the village limits, the throttle has to be turned off, and then they have to go to pedal assist. These are just ideas I'm throwing out there because, you know, they do have a strong lobby, and if we're gonna be realistic about keeping the island safe and allowing at the same time, to what Rodrigo was saying, adults use this. Our island can barely get through on the weekends with traffic. We're already struggling right now with traffic. So we're gonna have to look at the fact that these micro-mobility devices might become part of another transportation mode for the island. I agree with everybody, it needs regulation and use, but you may not be aware of the fact that just to Mast Academy, since the ban, traffic to and from school has been crazy. So, because we had so many students taking, not my kids, but taking the e-bike. So I do hope that you'll think about, you know, an age restriction. I would suggest, I don't know, 14. I know some people their minds are blowing right now, but 14. And the reason I'm saying this, again, a lot of Key Biscayne kids do go to Mast Academy.
So I want to address that because it came up in the legislature. You know, I'm talking about Key Biscayne all the time, and they have to remind me that I'm legislating for the entire state.
Yeah.
And there are kids in rural communities that take these bikes to get to school, and they said, you can't now, because you have a problem in Key Biscayne, now make and create a bigger problem across the state when kids are riding these to school. There was also elderly people who called my office and said, listen, just like Rodrigo's mother, I'm using these bikes to get to the grocery store. I can't afford a car, and now you want to regulate them and tell me I can't do that. So you have to keep in mind that maybe better than that is to give authority to local governments to regulate privately owned micromobility devices so that each community can do what's right for it. Because you're right, kids are riding them to Mast Academy, but in the Panhandle, where there is a community where there isn't even a stoplight, I can't ask those parents to figure out how to get their kids to school when that is the transportation that they've selected for their school. So as I've been listening to you and listening to the legislature, I think it makes more sense to do exactly what we did with the rental ones. Give local governments the ability to regulate them in their own communities. Then that makes the most sense, right? We're allowing people to do what's right for themselves and not across the board, you know, do something. And so hopefully, I will talk that through as well with leadership, because that may actually that would be the simplest solution. Do exactly what we did, except say rentals or privately owned. All I'd have to add is 3 words to the statute. So let's see, but those are points well taken. Thank you.
Because the sidewalk is a huge concern for pedestrians versus regular bicycles or e-bicycles or scooters, right? I've seen, and it can't be that expensive, but because I've seen it, I just came back from Peru and I saw it there. They have the poles like you do in the express lane, and that doesn't allow people to swivel in, and then you'll feel safer on the thing, and on the bike lane itself, you can remove it if you need to remove it, right? They're removable. Or there's short barriers to the extent of what is kind of like a speed bump, but they're laid on the same direction as the road, right? So if you fall, it's not like you're gonna hurt yourself, because that's what cyclists claim. It's like, well, we can't have a barrier because it's dangerous and we fall and so forth, right? You'll fall over that and get run over by the car, which is what would happen if you don't have the barrier anyways, but it'll prevent, let's be honest. I mean, 99% of people look at the phone at some point when they're driving, right? So it prevents,
well, now there's a new law
I've
coming
seen a
into
lot,
effect
I've been
July
looking
1st.
I work in the industry, so I know the stats for driving events. But, you know, people get distracted, they look at their phones, they pick up a call, they look at the back seat for something, you grab something, people get distracted while driving, so you can always swivel, and that's gonna help prevent, and I think it's gonna help people feel safer about riding in the bike lane. So those are just some ideas.
Those are ideas for the village.
Because remember, again, I want you to think a rural community. I cannot mandate or say you're going to use these things. If you've ever been on 30A, they're going to laugh at you and say, first of all, I'm not paying for it, I don't need it, I don't want it. But you might need it in a very congested area. So it's, again, another good idea as something that the village could do if it feels like it's necessary.
Could you share with us specifically what the legislation was that you submitted?
So it was an age restriction.
Harriet?
Yes, they agreed to do an age restriction. And remember that we did an age restriction on golf carts last year.
Yeah.
So they said, well, if we did it for golf carts, we can do it for the,
What's the age?
Was it?
No. Gave local governments the ability to pass an ordinance.
Right. We gave local governments the ability to pass an ordinance on an age restriction. So again, we weren't trying to mandate for everybody what the age should be. We would have given, if it had passed, the village of Key Biscayne could have passed an ordinance with whatever age restriction they decided would be appropriate for.
So there was no minimum?
No, we wanted it to be them. Because remember, you may have needed a driver's license.
Yeah.
I believe that you needed a driver's license as well, so that would have been 16 or 15 with a restricted.
Everything you heard,
Yes.
would you change that legislation to include something else?
No, I want to do a lot more than that. But I think a lot more means, why don't we just give the village the authority to regulate personally owned? They already have the authority to regulate. If they allowed companies to come in here and try to rent those things to you all, they have complete authority to decide how they would do that or not do it at all. So why don't we just give them the authority? I don't understand. I have to ask the question in the legislature, why won't you give local governments the same authority you've given them to regulate rental micromobility devices? And now that we know we've had an increase in personally used ones, let's let them regulate those as well.
Would you add Crandon Boulevard to that legislation?
So Crandon Boulevard, if they, remember, it's a county owned, so that they're a local government too. So I'd be giving them the same jurisdiction. But if they enter into an MOU, then remember the MOU will allow the village to regulate on Crandon. So if I give the village, then they can do whatever they want on Crandon once they execute their MOU.
One thing I've noticed in looking at the group of people here, I bet the minority of people here are not parents of kids under 16 riding their bikes. And I think that's one of the problems on the Key, that no legislation can make any difference of the attitude that's out there that why should you be restricting my child? You know, if my child wants a bike and I can afford it, that's fine. Whether they obey the rules or not, you know, I don't have control over them. And that's something we can't regulate. I don't know how we work on that attitude.
Well, we regulate their driving.
Well,
We don't let a 13-year-old get behind the wheel of the car, and so this thing is going as fast. Listen, I left here a couple of months ago, and at the stoplight right here, the light changed. I started to go. 2 kids that couldn't have been more than 12 were racing on 2 bikes. I almost killed them because I didn't see them coming. Literally, I didn't see them coming. So I regulate when it comes to safety. I can regulate anything when I think that people are not safe.
And somebody made this comment, I can't remember who said it, but I've lived here for 43 years, okay? And so over those 43 years, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a store or something where kids have been acting up, or I remember the old Blockbuster and they were, you know, throwing things around and running up and down the house. Every single time, every single employee would say, we can't say anything. We've been told we'll make people mad, and then they won't come back anymore. We've been told absolutely we can't do anything. So, you know, I don't know how we work on that attitude, but I would like to see as much enforcement as possible. I don't think it should be coddled. I don't think they should be taken to their parents. And, you know, the parents say, oh, my little Wani or my little Sophie or whatever won't do such and such. You must have made this up. Well, you know, we've got to let our enforcement people say, no, they did do it. This is the way it is. And I would just like to see whatever we decide to do, whatever is passed by our council, that we truly enforce that. You know, that we don't give any, you know, and just because one of the council people say, hey, that's my neighbor, don't don't bother them, and that has been said, that has been done, I know that, I've lived here for 43 years, but I think it's gonna be very important that enforcement element.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am, and then we'll go to you.
Very short.
Yes.
I agree with all of you, and I know that we have to take a solution that works for everyone. It's hard, but talking about enforcing and safety and educating, my girl doesn't have a bike either, nothing. They walk, that's it.
Good job, good job, good job. Walking never killed
I
anybody.
understand, they go to mass, there's a lot of kids that needs to go to mass, so that's what I'm hearing, like all the people and everyone has their own view, and it's valid, you know? My point is that my daughter of 12 years old, she told me that after the accident, she said, Mom, I don't understand if when I ride a bike of a friend, why you enforce me always to use a helmet, and anyone here use a helmet, even the older people. I don't get it. Everyone have to use a helmet. It's a safety for all of us. If I can have an accident and you enforce me to have the helmet, all the people can have the accident too. And I said, yeah, she was right. I've seen a lot of people, older people, like, I don't know, my neighbors, the grandma, the whatever. They go to the supermarket, they go in the bikes, the regular bikes, without the helmet. I think that is important.
I understand. I think that's just indicative of this incredibly island mentality that we're safe here. I think when people, you're not doing that on Brickell. People on Brickell don't wear helmets either. They're crazy. There's so much traffic. I mean, anything's capable. This is the island. I think we've always felt Key Biscayne is safe, for goodness sakes. We ought to be able to, nobody's racing through here. If you're on Brickell, they're going 70 miles an hour from the stoplight to 15th. They are moving at a velocity that is almost scary. This is the island. I love coming here. You know why? I feel like, oh my God, I'm in Nantucket. Everybody's happy, everybody's walking slowly, everybody's nice. So that's why people just, that is a sentiment of people. They want to be safe, they want peacefulness. That's why you live here. If not, you'd be living on Brickell. Truly. But you're not, thank God. I am. So I have a point of reference. But I understand your point, but I think it's because people really just genuinely think, look, I can go around the corner and I'll be fine. That's really what people think. Yes, sir.
The comment additional that will help you is insurance. If you force insurance, insurance will help you make this easy for everybody, because nobody will insure a 12-year-old kid, a 15-year-old kid driving such a vehicle.
I don't think the legislature will ever mandate insurance for a bicycle driver. I don't think so. Maybe the electric bicycle, but I'm telling you, I don't see that happening. But it's something to think about, but I don't think so. And I remember you so well. Who's got the right on a sidewalk? Go ahead.
My name is Ed Agostino. Even when I was coming to the island for the last 20 years, I just moved from Massachusetts, and I live here now. I retired. Because of my profession, I was in accidentology for 51 years. So to begin with, an e-bike is not a bike. They are completely different. To me, an e-bike is more towards a motorcycle than a bike. There are three common denominators in any accident: incapacitation, alcohol; inexperience, a 12, 10 years old; or imprudence. No helmet, go through the red light, okay? Or turn left when you have to turn right, or one of those traffic incidents. Also, you can add a mechanical failure. It could be. Now, as you tell me right now, before the ban, a 10 years old, a 12 years old can ride an e-bike. While over there, you already have two factors: inexperience and imprudence. Don't tell me that a 10, 12, 13, 15 years old had experience to ride an e-bike or a motorcycle, or can make the right judgment. They don't have experience. The same goes with a bike. I agree with the lady driving in the back who said they need to wear a helmet. I don't understand why in Florida, I understand, the motorcycles, they don't have to wear a helmet. I've seen hundreds, thousands of young people die, families ruined, because of an accident, just a stupid accident, like the one we have here in Key Biscayne in February. That was a stupid accident. So, to make a long story short, I don't think that the young kid not able to drive a car can drive an e-bike on the street without being at least the age that he can drive a car, because he doesn't have the judgment, he doesn't have the experience, and he's completely, like you tell your kid, don't be silly, they are imprudent, okay? And the bikes, as far as I remember, they were able to go on the sidewalk, isn't it? They were able to ride the e-bike on the sidewalk, right? Yeah, they can't. They just can't.
On Key Biscayne, they can go wherever they want.
Eh?
On Key Biscayne, they could go wherever they want.
You cannot, even if you write a law or a regulation for a bike, you cannot ride a bike on the sidewalk. Because they go 20 miles an hour. And do you think that the kids are going to say, oh, there are people walking, I better go 2 miles an hour like a regular bike? No, you can't. And somebody over here was saying the same. They were racing with a regular bike, they were racing on the street. So I think that an e-bike is not a bike. They cannot ride an e-bike if you are 12, 13. You have to be at least, I don't know what's the age for the driver's license here in Florida.
16.
Come on?
16.
16. Well, I think it's too young, but still 16. And you have to wear a helmet. And you cannot ride on the sidewalk, you have to go on the street.
Or a regular bicycle with no electricity. Anybody knows?
Listen, those that are riding those bikes on Brickell and on Key Biscayne, regular bikes, they're flying. They're flying. They're using those bikes that weigh nothing. Oh, normal people. I have no idea how fast I can go on a bike.
50 miles an hour?
Not that much.
50 miles an hour. Okay. They can set up a signal inside Key Biscayne that any bicycle inside electronically can only maximum go to 50 miles an hour.
Here almost in May of 2024, this discussion started in May of 22 when the council took up this issue. And we're sitting here today, and I thank you for your efforts. The only problem is we're kicking this down the road again.
Right. Yeah.
We overreacted, we put a full ban, we could have done this a long time ago. And basically, we're kicking this down because Miami-Dade will not be able to do that until the MOU, and your thing would be the next session in March, would then take effect June 1st. So we're just kicking this down the road, and in the interim, we're gonna set a band or something, which some people question whether you can. Like I said, this started in May of 22. In December of 22, an ordinance was going to receive first reading at our thing banning Class 2 and Class 3. The reason it was stopped was because it didn't include the e-scooter. So if we would have done that in December of 22nd, we would have avoided a tragedy that occurred here. You know, there's a lot of things here that have been said. The Class 2 isn't like a Class 1. Because you could just use it with a trigger as opposed to having to pedal. Class 1, you have to. Those were the original bikes from Europe for elderly people to get around hilly areas. What I'm saying is we're kicking this down the road again. We could currently impose that ban, which was going to be read in December of 22. We could enforce the laws on the sidewalk, which says that while they're motorized, they can't be on the sidewalk. Either of the two, and we could be moving forward this way rather than having this animosity about a ban be put in place. So, you know, I just think we've been reactive. I know the council members keep bringing it up, but we just kept pushing. I mean, you went before the legislature only after this happened. So there would have been nothing in this legislature either. So I don't know where our council was requesting something to happen.
They requested it after the
No. They went.
Yeah, I know they left. I know they left. That's why I was trying to. I would have gone up and spoken. Yeah, that's not a problem. They've heard from me. I just don't get any answers from them because I wrote about that. But at the same time, I've had some disagreement. I guess Ali, is that you? Is that Ali? We've been writing back and forth. I have some discrepancies as to how the law is interpreted or whatever. But regardless, I've asked, why don't we ask the Attorney General for opinion letter as to whether we can.
And I can do that, right? I can.
Okay, but then we'll know if we can do it by age.
I'm happy to ask her to do it. I don't know that she will. I'm absolutely happy to ask her, because you're Rick, right?
Yep.
Yeah, hi Rick. Thank you for communicating with us. I feel like we can do that one. I will do what I can do. You're right, next session. The county has got a ordinance that's going to second reading April 8th. No, actually, it's going to committee April 8th, and on May 3rd, it's going to special reading before the county commission. Once that's passed, they will create the MOU. And so I suspect that before July 1st, you will have an MOU, at which point the village says that it can regulate age, it can regulate it can extend the ban to Crandon Boulevard if you want. So
It can regulate age at June 1st?
No, I'm sorry, it can't regulate age, it can regulate class.
Both.
Well, why can't they do it
Class
now
and
when they
age?
were proposing it
No,
in
no.
December of 22?
Class and speed, it can regulate class and speed.
December of 22, they were
They
going
can't- You know why they can't do it? It's Crandon Boulevard, believe it or not, and I think you should know this. The county commission is not in favor of banning e-bikes at all. They will not, it'll be I'm waiting to see how it works if you decide to continue to ban and they extend the ban to Crandon. The county has to agree to that, and we already got Commissioner Regalado to tell us last week that they're not in favor of that. So
And I don't agree with Crandon either. It's the only entrance to a state park, so the state might get involved. Which
Who
you're very
knows?
aware they're gonna say,
Who
right, you're not
knows?
letting people into the state park,
Correct,
so.
correct. But I think it will allow the village to do more regulations than they've been able to do. Because remember, you have to cross Crandon. If you're in Key Colony, you're crossing Crandon to get to, let's say, the Golden Hawk. So now you're crossing a county road. So the MOU is imperative so that they can do something that affects the entire island. So let's see what happens. I, like you, am watching, but I'll request the Attorney General's opinion. Let's see what she says.
Francis
Hi,
Reed.
Francis.
How are you?
How are you?
And I'm just going to remind everybody here that we each have a vote. And we have seen how this village council dilly-dallied about something that killed one of our residents. And they can all say, oh, mea culpa, but it is not that child's fault. The parents have some blame, but the first blame is our village council. And the fact that we aren't even talking about it is amazing to me. We all want to elect Representative Lopez again because she's in there, but I truly believe that it is time for us to think about, I mean, these people make no money, okay? So there's a whole, I mean,
Are you sure?
right, there is, I've always asked that question, but and they certainly have a campaign fund, some of them, but all I'm trying to say here is that it is on us to elect the people that we want to actually make rules that last. So thank you for your efforts. And let's vote.
Everybody left, all the council members that were here left.
Who cares?
They don't
They're
care
not
about
voting.
themselves.
They're going to vote for themselves.
The logic behind no obligation of wearing a helmet.
I don't know, because I wasn't in the legislature when they passed that, but I can find out. I can find out.
When you came out here to run in 2022, something really historical happened in Key Biscayne. We had 7 amendments, charter amendments.
We did.
5 did not pass, 2 did. But one of the important ones was that 62.13% of Key Biscayne residents voted against any change to our charter regarding zoning and land use. Pretty momentous. And then Live Local came out. And I was very disappointed because Live Local nullified the vote of Key Biscayne residents. Because after reading Live Local, and I totally understand you need to do workforce housing across the bay. We're 1.2 square miles. And we had a vision plan that was cruising through this village, and it had things like mixed-use buildings. And a lot of residents got very nervous because they started to see things like potential of development in what the village was proposing, which was in these shopping centers. So live local is actually a nightmare for us.
To address that, so live local would only pertain to properties that are zoned industrial. Do you have any industrial zoning on the island?
No, commercial
Okay,
and
no, just commercial and mixed use, right? Okay, so, this year's Live Local Act actually said if a property, if a commercial or mixed use property or an industrial property is, it's adjacent on two sides to any contiguous residential where there's 25 or more homes, you can't go really high. You gotta go as high as either 3 stories or 150% of the highest allowed. What is the highest allowed on the commercial and industrial zoning plots of sites of this island? That's the question. Because Live Local did not say you could go 25 stories. That did not say that. And so you don't have industrial, you have commercial. And on commercial, what is your highest piece of property on the commercial? Because it's only on Crandon that you have commercial, and then the little bit when you first come in where the Golden Hog, that little shopping center is. I don't see a lot of height in Key Biscayne.
But what did the amendment do, Representative Lopez?
Which amendment?
The amendment that you folks offered up recently was that the amendment was that, because people were complaining, correct?
Correct.
Bell Harbor, everybody was complaining about
Correct.
the height issue.
Right, so that's why we said, if
You
you're.
came back with an amendment, and the amendment, if I'm correct, and please correct me
Yeah, of
if I'm
course.
wrong, did it not take away the building department, let's say our local building department, from having a say on if it's workforce housing, so it's a mixed-use building, they say they're gonna do workforce housing, you're right, we're limited on height, but it took away their power, if I'm correct, to actually have a say on how large these apartments could be, correct?
No, so you're talking about floor area ratio, I think?
Yeah.
I think, so, yes, you're absolutely right. We said that if it's workforce housing, the complaint that everybody had on the first Live Local last year was they didn't want big buildings coming into their residence, so we fixed that. No one complained about the building department not having, I'd say jurisdiction or authority to put them through a hearing. What we did was we said it had to be approved administratively. It has to be approved by the city council administratively. But when I spoke to the village council, they told me that your vision plan has a net zero impact on growth. So if somebody builds something, you can tell me if it's right or wrong. They said that if they build something here, they cannot build something here.
Wrong.
So what does your vision plan say? That you can build anything on the commercial?
If you look at the plan, I didn't make the plan.
I haven't seen the plan.
The plan is on the website, everybody can go look at it, and it has mixed use right in the plan.
It has mixed use, so you could put housing and commercial
Correct.
in the same one. But how many units would that be, given?
We had an entire meeting on that.
Yes,
lasted
Tom.
over
Yes.
2 hours.
Yes.
We went over the plan, which was 50, 60 pages at the time.
Okay.
And basically, it calls for a complete demolishing and reconstruction of all the businesses on Crandon, and a lot of new 4- and 5-story high townhouse buildings on Fernwood, which is behind the park.
Yep, I know where Fernwood is.
And then where the Esplanade,
Yep.
the wooden mall, knocking that down and turning into a large mixed-use building with workforce housing.
Okay.
It called for. Residential, commercial. It was a complete reconstruction of the village, and it was not neutral. There was
And did it
nothing-
pass?
Yeah, the council.
Yes, the council adopted it.
Okay.
And what Louisa Conway is speaking about is when you take that vision plan and you combine it with the Live Local, a lot of residents are apprehensive, saying, wait a second, this is opening the door to, it's not neutral. You're talking about thousands and thousands of additional people are going to be living
here.
Biscayne
I see.
with the traffic as it is already.
Got it.
So that's the concern.
Okay, well, I will talk with the city council again, or I'll start with the city manager and I'll ask him to explain to me how much density his vision plan is actually planning for you and when. We'll start there, because I was under a totally different impression,
Well,
so.
that's kind of why this meeting
Yes.
is really important.
Understood.
Because, you know, we're sort of, e-bikes are important, but the future of this island and how we live here is extremely important. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, since with the new legislative session, we only have one roadway in, one way back out. Keys have the same issue.
Right.
Now, they were able to be exempt from some of this. Any possibility for our island, because we're unique. I totally understand that you folks need workforce housing in the city of Miami. But I'm asking all of you, do you really think we need that out here? And this is the issue. We're already maxed out.
I hear you. So
I just
what
was wondering
Lisa's
if
talking
you could-
about, so that you know, the Keys are environmentally sensitive lands that the federal government has a lot of jurisdiction over them. So they can't build the 70 units that are required under the Live Local. They can't. Because remember, the Live Local is meant for high buildings next to transportation networks so that people don't need cars and they can live and still get to and from work. The Keys could never have these high buildings with at least 70 workforce units in it. But the Keys said, we need housing for the people that work here. So we said, okay, we'll negotiate. We'll talk to the federal government, we'll figure out what works, and they get 10 units in order to do Live Local. Because there's no way that on their lands can they build a 25 or 35 story building. Which is what's happening in Alapada, which is completely industrial zoning. So that makes sense there. I think what Lisa's saying, can we try to apply the same? And I don't know, only because the Keys have a designation called the state's critical concern area. They can't do a lot of things because environmentally it's too sensitive. So I can ask Lisa to see if anybody would agree with me on that.
I'm just asking if for our island, we're only 1.2 square miles, we're never gonna change, and that road is never gonna change. So if there's something that could be put in place that would protect our island from, because we don't have control, if a developer comes in here, we don't, and they make offers to be shopping centers, they take it. Live Local's taken away our ability to vote like we had when we all voted 62% that we would keep that power, correct? So that's gone from us. So I'm just wondering if you could find a balance that will protect us, because we are unique.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna ask the village to explain to me how their vision plan is impacted by Live Local first. Because I don't know many developers that want to develop on this incredibly luxurious island and they want to only charge workforce rent. I don't know that that's really, you're not the kind of area that developers want to come in and use Live Local. Because they'd have to have super reduced rents, which make the project not very affordable for them. That works in Midtown, that works in Alapada.
Unless they're subsidized.
Well, I don't know if they're being subsidized by anything, but I will check. The first thing we're gonna do is find out from the village to give us an explanation about how Live Local impacts the vision plan. Let's start there. And I'll share that. I'll share whatever I get with Betty. She can disseminate it out to everyone. And then let's find out if next year, let me start talking to leaders and say, would you be willing to do this? Because let me just tell you, the Live Local bill that I passed this year was not my bill. It was the Senate's bill. And even though I tried to make some amendments to it, I was not permitted to do so. So when their bill came over, I had to take it as is. And the president of the Senate drove that agenda, and she is not amenable to any of these great changes that we're talking about, because she's from Naples, and she probably doesn't understand some of the intricacies of a unique barrier island like Key Biscayne. But I certainly will try. There's no question about it. Thank you for the suggestions. Fausto.
Representative, first of all, thank you for...
Please call me Vicki, Fausto. You've known me too long to not call me.
So, first, thank you for what you do for us in Tallahassee. Certainly, we all appreciate it, and thank you for being here. So I wanted to raise another issue.
Yes.
We are prisoners in our homes every weekend.
Okay.
Okay? Absolute prisoners in our home. We can't leave Saturdays, we can't leave Sundays. As you know, an hour and 45 minutes to leave Key Biscayne, et cetera, et cetera. Crandon Boulevard and Rickenbacker Causeway have a state designation. They're state roads. Even though they're controlled by the county, they have a state road designation. So what I would ask from you is your good offices to broker a meeting, public meeting, between the county, the city of Miami, and the village of Key Biscayne, using your authority, because Crandon and Rickenbacker is a state road, having the Department of Transportation there at that meeting, so we can coordinate an effective transportation plan for this community, for the city of Miami, and for Miami-Dade County with regards to Crandon and Rickenbacker. Unfortunately, and I'll just be straight out, our village has not done that. Our village essentially has been quiescent while we all basically are stuck in our homes every weekend. And I think it would take somebody like you, with the authority of the state, the authority of the state road, and the Department of Transportation to coordinate that public meeting. And as you know, in Florida statutes, there's a process for doing that.
Yes.
Okay? So that we can all participate.
Sure.
And our village can participate, and we can hopefully reach some sort of accommodation between the three entities and the state of Florida. Because the state of Florida is obviously, Bill Baggs is right at the end.
Correct. I'm happy to try to facilitate that meeting. I do that a lot for people. So we'll contact FDOT, just so that you know, the Department of Transportation, it sort of works very regionally, and I think you know that, Fausto. So Stacy Miller is the regional secretary here, and so the department will tell me it's Stacy we have to invite. Stacy's the one. Okay, well, we'll do that. We'll do whatever it takes to get FDOT to the table. So we'll invite Stacy Miller as a representative of FDOT. We'll invite the county, so we'll invite county transportation people and our county commissioner. We'll invite the city of Miami, right? Because they do have the portion of the Rickenbacker, so we'll invite their transportation people and potentially their city manager. And then we'll invite our own city manager here and whoever does transportation issues here. And then we'll try to get a meeting date and time, and even if we do it in the summer, it's fine, if we, because it's like herding cats with all of these people. And then we'll announce it, and we'll say we're having a public meeting to discuss Rickenbacker and and Crandon. And let's make it so that it's like a look into the future. Because right now, I don't know what the future plan is. When we asked the state about Crandon, it's really kind of funny. They gave it to the county in 1960, was it? It was so long ago.
1949.
Maybe 49, I don't know. I think it was more like 67 or 69 is what I remember, and they quit paying for it. So they gave it to the county, and then the county started paying for it. And the state says, we don't have any real jurisdiction over it anymore. We've turned it over to them, and they own it. They have to pay for it. But the Rickenbacker is the city of Miami, right? Because remember, I have the city and the village. And so let's tell them we want to talk about transportation options for the future. This is a one-way in, one-way out. People can't get in, can't get out on a normal day, much less a weekend day. And let's see if they agree to come, Fausto. I will absolutely commit to getting that done. And let's see what happens. Let's see if they're willing to all come together to talk about those two roads.
You're absolutely correct. But there's a state statute that basically says, not basically, it says that the Department of Transportation will fund improvements and maintenance of Crandon Boulevard because it's the only way in and out of a state park.
So we discussed this with them. I have a feeling I've already done this before. I'm gonna have to look at my notes to see what they told me, because we called them about that. And I literally tell the governor's office, listen, it's your responsibility. They're coming onto the island. We have to have increased public safety to take care of it. We have increased traffic congestion. What are you all doing about it? So maybe let us just try this idea that you have and let's see what happens. Because I always say, let's give them enough rope to hang themselves. If they won't agree to come and help us, then we know what we're facing. But we don't know until we ask.
Who I've dealt with,
I know you have.
refuses to acknowledge that statute and refuses to take responsibility. And then basically what you need to do, and when I was representing Key Biscayne, we would go to the central office, and the central office would take care of it rather than the district secretary.
Okay, well, we'll ask, because they're big. Let me just tell you that the one secretary that has not met with me and doesn't meet with me despite my repeated requests is the Department of Transportation. He doesn't. He sends me to Stacy. They send me to Stacy. He never once has been, he's been invited a million times to my office to talk about transportation issues. And of course, one of them is micromobility devices, and he doesn't even respond.
I think as a village, we've got to realize that City of Miami and Miami-Dade, who own those places, that's one of the last few places, waterfront and whatever, and it's a revenue source. We know the City of Miami's strapped. The concert, we might not have liked it, but they make money, and they're not going to stop. And I think we know that we're restricted by the 2 lanes. Obviously, we know about the Plan Z that was going to go in here, whatever. I think the way to fix this is a restricted lane for Key Biscayne or whatever. Us knowing, because I keep hearing people say, oh, they should stop the concert or whatever. They're not going to do that because they own that. Miami-Dade's going to do whatever. The aquarium might be coming. They're revenue sources for them, and obviously also entertainment and recreational facilities for the rest of the county residents. So I think we got to be, understand that those things aren't going to go away, and we got to find another way. And 2 lanes isn't going to do it, no matter how many police you have at some of these events, And I think, we have to negotiate something for the rebuild of the causeway with a dedicated lane into Key Biscayne.
I couldn't disagree, Rick. I think they have to be willing to come to the table and listen to us and to our ideas about what makes it easier for the residents.
Well, I think we sued them a few years ago, and that got them to the table. Otherwise, well, that's what happened, and that's how we got them to the table.
But that's a sad commentary, that we have to sue someone to come to the table who is either an elected official or in government, and they should be able to come here and listen like we're all sitting here listening to each other.
But Rick is right.
Yeah.
It takes a lot.
Well, I don't even like to hear
The City of Miami
that.
only cares still over there.
I know, because where it stops is their
jurisdiction.
jurisdiction.
We're all going to have to face is the population has increased, and it's going to continue to increase. We've got the same finite amount of land, but we can't do any, unless you're gonna say everybody, has to have birth control, absolutely, positively, no more children,
Okay, now.
Understood, but I think that's to Luisa's point, I think. But I think to Luisa's point, we're saying, look, we only have a finite number of land and buildings right now.
And the other part is, I worked for the county for many, many years in a lot of different positions. And you're absolutely 100% right about, when the government says, this is a revenue producing source for us, we need to hang on to it. And the attitude always was, I know when I worked for Miami-Dade County government, the Key Biscayneers are elitists. How can they deny other people use of land, use of the public Bill Baggs Park, or Brandon Park, or Virginia Key, and say, you don't want any traffic, and so you're not gonna have anybody come on the key. Well, that's not the way it works. That is public
No,
land.
and let me just tell you, we've not seen what's coming now that the aquarium is gonna close. I have no idea what the county's plan is for that. They've been pretty hush-hush about it, but I don't know what that's gonna bring.
They may not even know what the plan is.
They may not, but I'm saying that that's something that we have to look at as well, because once people get that far down, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to Key Biscayne for lunch, and it's just a hop, skip, and a bunch to the state. I don't know what they're gonna do, but we have to be, you're right, Fausta, we have to be proactive about trying to figure out what is the transportation network gonna look like for those that live and really do have issues coming on and off the island on a regular day. Forget about when we have events anywhere near us, so, all right.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Well, I think I can speak on behalf of the board of the KBNA and say that tonight's meeting was beyond our wildest dreams and success. Thank you very much, Representative Lopez.
Always.
Thank you very much to the residents that spoke up. At one point I counted between 75 and 80 people here. Fantastic. I believe these types of meetings give residents the opportunity to speak and talk and discuss amongst themselves. At council meetings, you only get 3 minutes, and then you're out. Here, you have the time and you have the ability to speak amongst each other, discuss, and then get your thoughts organized, and then go walk across the street to the council meetings. Because having been on council, I will tell you, if enough people show up at a council meeting and use their 3 minutes to drive their point home, that council will listen. So today is a fantastic beginning, but please, vote with your feet, go to the council meeting and speak your mind. And thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.